Good afternoon, our dear students with prep stage, preparatory 2. Sorry, of course, for the unfortunate luck we had to go through starting this epidemic that ran through Egypt, and therefore we had to switch our learning from going to school to studying at home. Now, going through that, we will work on the rest of the parts to be discussed in our syllabus according to what our school decides. And now we are covering a new part that should have been covered last week, but of course it was postponed due to the bad weather on Thursday. This is the O-level session we had to cover last Thursday, and we couldn't do that. Now, we had the chance, thanks God, to do it today, and we are going through this right away. Our module, if you remember it, it was called Around the World, and we discussed one unit already with this module. It's Unit 13. Unit 13, if I might ask you a question, I would say what was the title of the unit if you do remember. Yes, it was called An Interesting Trip. This unit discussed the module as it should be, going around the world. This is the module, and that's what was covered by the unit, going around the world on interesting trips in Egypt and out of Egypt and so on. Today, inshallah, we are covering another unit, Unit 14, and Unit 14 discusses the same theme of our module, around the world. Now we have to study schools around the world. Schools around the world, of course, do not operate the same way. They have different ways of discussing their educational purposes, and we will learn some of these differences here today, inshallah. We have these objectives to cover today, these 5 objectives. The first part will be grammar. We will learn and identify new grammar about obligation and lack of obligation using verb to have to, and don't have to. That's for the plural, positive and negative. Then we have has to and doesn't have to. That's for the singular, positive and negative as well. Then we will move to the reading part, where we will read an article about schools around the world, discussing, to be precise, 3 schools. One of them is here in Egypt. Then we will listen to a survey done by a fellow students in the same grade. Then we will go to the speaking part, or language function part, where we will learn a new function, a new language function. And I have stressed a lot for my students to study this part and be familiar with it, get familiar with it as much as you can, because inshallah next year in Prep 3, there will be a full exercise on that one right here, on this language function, or on language function in general, and it will be tackled in the exam, a situation exercise. What will you do in each of the following situations? That's how it's called, or how we operate with it. And for that, we need to study and be accurate with studying language function so that we can easily work on this exercise. Now, the last part will be the writing part, in which we will write results of a survey. If you do a survey about something, or about a certain event, about opinion, questionnaires, and so on, you have done the survey. How would you put the numbers in this survey, or the percentages in this survey, into words? How would you write that? Now, as for the speaking part, we forgot to discuss it, its details. We will talk about questions, asking questions and discussing them formally and informally. Now, let's go ahead and answer these 5 questions. Do children in Egypt have to go to school when they are 4 years? These are questions to predict what we are about to do. That's the first question. Do Egyptian students have to wear a uniform? And I believe we all do, especially here with our school. Now, do Japanese students have to practice sports or music after school? That's of course different from another country. That's different from our country, and they have different ways of discussing and handling their business. We will see about that. Do Japanese students have to clean their school at lunchtime? Another question about Japanese schools. We're about to know that. The students in Brazil have to go to school at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's another part to discuss. And now we move to another part of the world that's in South America, Brazil. Now, there are 5 questions, and we are supposed to cover the questions, these questions, through the reading text. This is how our unit looks like, Unit 14, and there is the title, Schools Around the World, the objectives we have mentioned, some questions, and then the reading text, 3 schools. We have 3 schools and 3 pictures discussing or listing certain parts about these 3 schools. One of them is in Egypt, right here. 3 students are walking in a line, and another picture is about students doing something, and I think they are wiping the floor or so. And another school looks like a primitive part of the world, and that's Brazil. Now, let's go ahead and read the 3 texts and then answer the questions to be done. You have, let's say, 2 minutes to read this text, then go back to the questions above. It's 12:37. We will check our answers and we'll go back to our exercise in 2 minutes. Now, if you are done reading in the 2 minutes, let's go ahead and get some answers to these 5 questions. Let's go on with the first question. Do children in Egypt have to go to school when they are 4 years old? And our text said no. They go starting from 6 to 15 years old. Next question is about students. Do students in Egypt have to wear a uniform? And I agree, this was a yes, as we have discussed before we start reading. Then, question 3. Do Japanese students have to practice sports or do music after school? This came as well in our reading text. They have to clean, they have to practice, so and so. Most of them, not all of them. Okay. Now, fourth question: Japanese students, do they have to clean their school at lunch time? Going back, yes, they do. They have to clean the school building at lunchtime. Now, the last one: do students in Brazil have to go to school at 6 o'clock in the morning? We discussed that. And schools in Brazil, we said they have, as you have read, have different opening times. Some could be in the morning, others in the afternoon, others are in the evening. Now, let's cover the 2 exercises here, exercises 3 and 4. And for each exercise, I will give you 1 minute to handle. Starting now, it's 12:39, 12:40, time's up. Okay, it's 12:40, so our time is up. Let's go ahead and find the answer for these exercises. There's 3 complete the sentences with words from the article. From the article above, these are the 4 words: nursery, primary, preparatory, and uniform. Number 1, all children go to primary and so school. Number 2, many children in Egypt go to so school before they are 6 years old. I believe this will be nursery, this will be preparatory. Our school, uniform. So there are the answers. Let's check these answers to ours. Secondary, that's the first gap. Then nursery on gap 2, and on gap 3 we have uniform. The true and false exercise, we have these 4 sentences, and as you were given enough time to answer them, let's go ahead and tackle them. All children, are these sentences true or false? Number 1, let's read it. All children in Egypt start school at the age of 4. We said that this is a no, this is false. In 2, in Japan, students have to clean their classroom before school. We mentioned this is a no as well. Now, 3, some students in Japan have lessons outside school, and this might be included in this part. Don't have to go to these lessons. Many students go because they want, because they are at school. Now, there are 3 different school times for children in Brazil, and I believe this one will be yes. So there are the answers. The first is false. They start at 6. The second is false. They do the cleaning at lunchtime, not before school. 3 and 4 are correct, so they are true. Now moving on to the second part of our unit, we have a grammar part to work with. This is the obligation and lack of obligation parts we have discussed, and we said we will use verb to have with, have to, don't have to, and doesn't have to. Let's read what the grammar box includes for this one. The first one, we use has to, and has to talk about the rules and things that are necessary, that are important. We have to go to school for 5 days. This is this is a necessity. He has to go to school on time. As you have seen, we is a plural pronoun. So this plural pronoun had to have, not has, nothing else. But here we had he, and that's a singular pronoun, for that we will use has, not have. Moving on. We use the negative form, don't have to and doesn't have to talk about things that are necessary. So if I'm moving to the plural, I would use don't have to. Singular, I would use doesn't have to, and this will speak of the non-necessity. Let's check out the examples. We don't have to go to school on Saturdays because we are off that day. He is not late. He's not late. He doesn't have to hurry because he still have enough time. So here we used we, so we followed it by don't. He is singular, we followed it by doesn't have to, as we have mentioned in our class before, that the pronoun singular or plural should be matching with the verbs mentioned right after it. A verb and a pronoun should be matching. Now, let's see how to form questions. The yes no questions, we use do or does to build a question, then the subject followed by have to and the infinitive with the base form of the verb. Check the examples. Do you have to get up at 7 o'clock? Yes, I do, or no, I don't. Does she have to eat breakfast? Yes, she does, or no, she doesn't. As you have seen, we use do with the plural, does with our singular pronouns. You can also make questions using question words. By that I mean all the WH question words: why, when, where, what, how, and so on. What? When do we have to finish our homework? Why does she have to go now? And so on. We get the question word first, then we follow it by do or does, then the pronoun or the noun, then has to or have to, then the base form or the infinitive, and so on. Now, we have exercise A, exercise 1 to cover on this grammar rule. Underline the examples of have to in these sentences. Circle don't have to, as we have known. Has to and have to are for the plural. Have to and don't have to are for the plural. Has to and doesn't have and don't have to are for the sorry, I got mixed up. Don't have to and have to are used for the plural. Has to and doesn't have to are used for singular. This is for us to do, of course, when we have the luxury to do it in class. Now, moving to this exercise, let's cover exercise 2. 5 sentences. Complete the sentence with the correct form of have, has to, or don't, or doesn't have to. Plural, singular, affirmative, negative. This is according to us and what we will see in this exercise. For this exercise, I will give you 2 straight minutes starting now. It's 4:46 to 12:46. When it's 47, we will be up. Okay, let's cover this part. You have to use a pen to write the exam. Don't use a pencil. Number 2, all students so and so come to school on time. This is a necessity. This is an important thing. So have to is the suitable answer. All students have to come to school on time. People so and so drive on the right in Egypt. This is a necessity. They have to drive on the right, otherwise there would be accidents. Number four, Hassan so and so learn this vocabulary because he already knows it. If he knows it, then there is no need for him to learn it again. Then he don't or doesn't have to. But since we have Hassan, and Hassan is a singular noun, we would say Hassan doesn't have to, as we have discussed with the red grammar box above. Number five, my aunt so and so work at night sometimes because she's a nurse. If she's a nurse, then sometimes she has to work. We used has to because my aunt, that's a singular now. Now, this is for us to do in class, but we are not there to check it. There are the answers for the last exercise. Have to for number two, have to number three, doesn't have to, and has to for four and five. Now, let's move on to the last part, the next part, the listening part of our unit on lesson three. We have some warm-up nice exercises here, a matching exercise. Ask an answer, can you match the words and the pictures? We have five pictures of some people doing certain things, and we have the names of these activities above. Let's go ahead and try to match them in, let's say, 30 seconds, starting now. Okay, let's move on. Do the washing up. That was C. C doing the washing up. She's washing the dishes. Let's see. The next is dry the dishes. I believe it's that girl in D. She's helping her friend or sister or whatever they are related to each other with. This one is washing. This one is drying. Then we have make the bed. I believe it would be that friend of us. She's doing her bed or making her bed. That's a very good habit to have, by the way. Setting the table, that would be E, and A, that's sweeping the floor. Now, which of these jobs do you have to do at home? This is a question for us to do in class, of course, but we can't, so we will move on. Listen to the survey. In which conversation is the speaker talking to a friend? These are the two listening exercises we have to cover, and for them we will listen twice to an audio. So let's read the questions first, then go ahead and listen, then answer them. In which conversation is the speaker talking to a friend? That's question one. Question two, how do you know? How do you know that this speaker is talking to a friend? Then on exercise three, we listen again and complete the table. Speaker one did the sweeping, made his bed, set the table, did the dishes, or dried them. Speaker two and three with the same activities. Go ahead and check your answers with these. There are the answers to the listening part about if she's talking to a friend or not. Yes, we know this. Of the language they used. They used hello. She called her with her name Frida. Hello, Frida. Is it okay if? And so on. This is an informal language used only with friends. Now, there are the answers to the table if you wish to go through it. Now, moving on to our function box. Discussing this listening part or listening task we have had. If we have checked how the girls are talking and how this young girl doing the survey, how she was talking to the different people she was surveying, she had different attitudes and different ways. Some were formal, some were informal. And these are the formats you follow if you are talking formally and informally to someone. Let's go ahead and start with the formal part about asking and answering questions. The formal way. Do you mind if I ask you some questions about so and so? Not at all. Excuse me, will I ask you some questions about so and so? Yes, of course. Could you tell me whether you have to sweep the floor? You would say that you do that or you don't. Now, speaking informally, asking and answering questions informally. Hello, Is it okay if I ask you some questions about so and so? That's fine. That's the answer. Do you have to sweep the floors? If we pay much attention, the following parts or the last parts we have just read are used only informally. So when we are talking to a friend or a brother or a sister, away from the formal part on which we are talking to someone older than us, like a teacher or our relatives or older people and so on. Now, let's move on to the next part with lesson 4. Lesson 4 got matching exercise discussing the grammar rule. This will be uh, homework for you to work it out together. Now, let's go on to the last part of our unit, the review, and we have 1, 2, then 3 exercises to discuss. Let's go ahead with the titles. The first is a matching exercise discussing the 4 words we have learned with this unit: uniform, secondary, nursery, and primary schools. We have to match them with these titles. The first one is done for us. Then we will cover the grammar part using has to, have to, doesn't, don't have to for obligation. Complete the sentences with the correct form of has to, or don't, doesn't have to. Then ask formal questions in these 4 parts. For these 3 exercises, I will give you a total time of 5 minutes to do it starting now. Okay, when you're done, check your answers, and your answers are right there. That's for exercise 1, exercise 2, and that's exercise 3. Now, our session is up. Hope you have enjoyed because sure I did. And going back to the objectives, we can now call them outcomes because we have covered each of and every one of them now. We have identified how to speak of obligation and lack of obligation using has to, have to, don't have to, has to, and doesn't have to. We also read an article about schools around the world. If you remember, there were 3 schools: a school in Egypt, another in Brazil, and another in Japan. And we also listened to a survey done by one of our friends who was talking about home chores and what do those people do at home, what kinds of chores they have to carry out. Then we had a speaking exercise about formal and informal language. That's the one that was discussed in the survey. Then the writing part that will be included with our workbook to do at home when we are done. And that's right here. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have enjoyed. This is in our workbook, yes, and not here. Now, wait for our coming session. Inshallah, it will be with the A-level part. I hope you would be interested and would be looking forward to working this out because I am more than happy to go ahead and help you with this, my dear students. Goodbye and see you later.